Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we're taking a deep plunge into something, well, absolutely critical. The foundational values and ethical principles that really underpin effective public service. Look, in a world just saturated with information, where, the line between genuine public service and maybe just self-interest can get pretty blurry, our mission here is to cut through that noise. We've pulled together a really rich stack of sources for this deep dive. We've got excerpts on core values, insights from initiatives like ARC, the timeless wisdom of thinkers like Plato, Aristotle, Max Weber, and we're bringing it all to life with some pretty compelling real-world examples. So our goal for you today is clear. We want to equip you with the most important nuggets of knowledge, help you figure out what truly defines impactful, ethical public service, and crucially, how these principles work in the complexities of our modern world. Let's get started. So when we first start talking about aptitude and foundational values for civil service, our sources point to several key pillars: integrity, impartiality, objectivity, dedication, empathy, tolerance, compassion. The list goes on. But there's a concept here that seems to really tie it all together, and that's interdependence. It sounds simple, but it's maybe more than just teamwork. It feels like a fundamental shift in perspective.
Yeah, it really is. What's insightful about interdependence, I think, is that it forces a kind of necessary humility in public service. It's about acknowledging that, look, no single government agency, no department, no stakeholder has all the answers or all the resources. True impact, especially when you're dealing with complex public service delivery, it comes from dissolving that sort of organizational ego and really embracing mutual reliance. Success isn't, achieved in isolation. It absolutely demands seamless collaboration, open communication, coordinated effort. And all of that while understanding the bigger picture, the whole socioeconomic political landscape.
That really reframes it, because we often see efforts happening in silos, don't we? Mm-hmm. But the real breakthroughs seem to happen when this interdependence is genuinely embraced. I mean, think about the Uttarakhand government's vital collaboration with the NDRF, the National Disaster Response Force, the Indian Air Force, and even IIT Roorkee, all working together to fight those devastating forest fires.
Mm-hmm. A classic example.
Or consider something like improving education quality across the whole country. That's definitely not a solo mission for one ministry, right?
Absolutely not.
It involves ministries, state governments, local schools, teachers, parents, everyone needing to sync up. We even see this on a massive scale, like the mutual economic interdependence between, say, China and India, even with all the geopolitical tensions flying around.
Precisely. And it brings to mind that powerful quote from Erik Erikson. He said, "Life doesn't make any sense without interdependence. We need each other. And the sooner we learn that it is better for us all."
Yeah.
It's such a foundational truth, really, from our personal lives right up to the most complex government operations.
And as public service gets more interconnected like this, the need to protect sensitive information within that web, well, it becomes even more critical. Which brings us neatly to confidentiality. At its core, it's about safeguarding information, stopping unauthorized disclosure.
Yeah, and its role in public service is just paramount. You need it to protect personal privacy, obviously, but also to maintain security and, crucially, to prevent the misuse or abuse of sensitive information. And, in our digital age, the sheer volume and demand for personal information held in databases, it just amplifies the risks of theft or abuse for financial gain exponentially.
Yeah.
It's a constant balancing act, isn't it? Transparency versus privacy.
Absolutely. I mean, think about public servants who have access to incredibly personal stuff, medical records, tax details, criminal records maybe. Keeping that confidential isn't just following a rule, it's fundamental to maintaining public trust and preventing exploitation.
Exactly.
Or think about the strict protocols in, say, military, intelligence, or diplomatic fields. A breach there. It could genuinely compromise national security. We've seen court directives, for instance, specifically protecting the privacy of those who deposed before the HEMA panel, that commission looking into issues in the Malayalam film industry. That clearly aligns with this principle.
Mm-hmm. Protecting witnesses.
And as a stark reminder of the consequences, remember that retired superintendent of police, the SP, arrested under the Official Secrets Act for publishing confidential info in a book. The stakes are just incredibly high.
They really are.
Now let's shift gears a bit and explore another driving force that's just essential for public service today: innovation. And this isn't just about, flashy new tech. It's the systematic development, the implementation of new ideas, new processes, new technologies to genuinely improve how services are delivered and how we tackle complex social problems. It's really about finding more effective, more efficient, and, importantly, more responsive ways to meet citizens' needs.
And it's important to stress, this isn't just about brainstorming cool ideas. Public service innovation often requires, well, a willingness to take calculated risks, and maybe even more importantly, to learn from failures when they happen.
Right. That's hard in the public sector sometimes.
It is, and it definitely needs consistent support from government leadership, from senior officials, all while, working diligently within the existing rules and frameworks. There's an inherent tension there, isn't there? Balancing that need for agility and new solutions with the public sector's mandate for accountability and, well, being careful with public money.
That's a vital point. The risk calculation is different. But we've seen some incredible examples lately, haven't we? Like Agnico Cosmos launching the world's first rocket with a single-piece 3D printed engine. I mean, wow. A huge innovation milestone, showing what can happen when public and private sectors innovate together.
A real leap forward.
And sure, technologies like AI, artificial intelligence, they have their limits, their ethical questions like bias, we know that. But they undeniably bring a scientific temper and drive innovation into practice. Or think about something simpler like DigiLocker. A straightforward but really powerful innovation that's drastically cut down the need for physical documents. Makes government services so much more convenient, more efficient for everyone.
Yeah, practical innovation.
And our sources even point out how innovation is vital in resolving ethical dilemmas sometimes, by giving us new tools or perspectives to tackle old problems. Now here's where I think it gets really fascinating. Let's shift our focus from the cutting-edge innovations back to some ancient wisdom. Specifically, the 4 cardinal virtues, prudence, justice, fortitude, and temperance, talked about by giants like Plato and Aristotle. What's kind of surprising is just how relevant these ancient virtues feel today, especially when public servants are facing all these modern pressure.
Oh, absolutely. They offer a really profound, enduring framework. Let's start with prudence. This is all about being careful, being wise in your decision-making, diligently considering the potential risks, the benefits of all the different options. Aquinas actually ranked it as the first cardinal virtue. Why? Because it's concerned with the intellect. It allows us to judge correctly what's right or wrong in any given situation. Aristotle called it right reason applied to practice. And fundamentally, it requires us to seek counsel, to talk to others, not just rely on our own judgment. The tension here, often for a public servant, is that pressure for quick decisions, maybe in a crisis. Seeking counsel might seem like weakness, but that's precisely when prudence is most needed.
That's a powerful paradox, isn't it? You can see prudence play out in so many practical ways. Say your senior gives you a task. Real prudence means using your own judgment to assess if it's lawful, if it truly serves the public interest, not just, blindly following orders.
Right. Critical thinking.
A finance director shows fiscal responsibility, that's prudence, by doing a thorough analysis before approving funding. Emergency responders develop meticulous plans, thinking through contingencies, that's prudence and risk management. And we've certainly seen civil servants showing prudence in managing election logistics, meticulously planning, executing measures for free and fair processes, despite huge challenges.
Exactly. Then we move to justice. This is about fair, impartial treatment for everyone. Upholding the law, protecting rights, regardless of someone's background or status. St. Thomas saw justice as concerned with the will. A kind of constant, permanent determination to give everyone what they are rightfully due. And it's interesting. Well, today we often use justice in a negative sense, like seeking justice for a wrong.
Yeah, like after a crime.
Right. Its traditional focus was always positive, respecting others' rights, striving for balance, for equilibrium in society.
And its application is just vital, isn't it? It's about ensuring fair access to services. Like a teacher making sure all students get equal opportunities, regardless of their background.
Equity in action.
A police officer upholds the rule of law, holding perpetrators accountable, yes, but also protecting the rights of the accused. That's justice. We even have examples like that Indian Forest Service officer, Varun Jain, reclaiming hundreds of hectares of forest land. That demonstrates a real commitment to environmental justice, the fair sharing of resources.
A great example. Then there's fortitude. This is that quality of having courage, resilience, when you're facing adversity or difficulty. It helps us overcome fear. And importantly, it's a reasoned courage, not just being reckless or foolish.
Okay, so not just running into danger.
Yeah, no. Fortitude provides the essential strength to actually do what prudence and justice tell you is right. especially when that path is difficult or maybe unpopular.
So let's say you decide you're not going to give in to illicit demands from a powerful relative. You need fortitude to stick to your values against that pressure.
Absolutely.
Moral courage.
Emergency responders show incredible fortitude during crises, pushing through exhaustion, through fear, to manage the response effectively. We've seen athletes like cricketer Rishabh Pant, his comeback after personal and professional challenges that showed remarkable resilience, fortitude,
And grit.
And the Assam Rifles demonstrated exceptional fortitude, intercepting that cache of arms near the Indo-Myanmar border, putting themselves in danger for national security. Exactly. And finally, that brings us to temperance. This is about exercising self-control, restraint against our impulses or temptations. You could say, well, fortitude is about restraining fear. Temperance is about restraining our desires, our passions.
Oh, yeah.
It's that golden mean, Aristotle's idea of moderation that keeps us from going to extremes. It's that constant internal struggle, where the spirit is willing, but the flesh is weak, as the saying goes. It really challenges a public servant to put the public good ahead of any personal gain or desire.
This feels so relatable, yet obviously so challenging in practice. Think about someone who stays away from corruption, even when it might be widespread in their organization, simply because they have limited desires and disciplined self-control. That's temperance.
It is.
Public servants exercise temperance when they manage conflicts of interest, ensuring decisions about awarding contracts, for example, aren't swayed by personal relationships or potential financial gain. It's also just about maintaining professional conduct with colleagues, with the public, even when you're under stress.
Basic professionalism, but rooted in virtue.
And unfortunately, we sometimes see the opposite, don't we? Like that recent arrest of a CBI inspector caught taking a bribe while investigating a scam. A really stark reminder of what happens when temperance fails. It makes you think of what Mahatma Gandhi said. There is enough on this earth for everyone's need, but for no one's greed. Temperance is key to that.
A very apt quote.
Speaking of navigating rules and pressures, let's talk about something called bureaucratic wisdom. This sounds interesting. It's described as a really valuable problem-solving skill, especially in those, complex, rule-bound government structures. It seems to be more than just knowing the rules. It's knowing how to make them work for the public good.
That's exactly it. Individuals who have this bureaucratic wisdom, they possess a deep understanding of how the organization really works. Its culture, its internal politics, the power dynamics.
The unwritten stuff.
Precisely. They're also intimately familiar with the formal rules, the regulations, the procedures. But crucially, they have strategies for working within those constraints. Sometimes even, bending them slightly without breaking them if it serves a greater good.
Oh.
This skill is incredibly useful when you've got competing interests or stakeholders pulling in different directions. It helps find common ground, creative solutions that meet everyone's needs as much as possible. It's about finding those elegant solutions within what can sometimes feel like a very rigid system.
It's about finding that clever path, that workaround that's still legitimate, isn't it? For example, even if an organization has super strict procurement rules, someone with bureaucratic wisdom might find a vendor who not only meets all the requirements, but also offers a really cost-effective solution, maybe through a smart interpretation of the guidelines.
Right, navigating the red tape effectively.
During the COVID-19 pandemic, we saw public servants displaying this wisdom, didn't we? Swiftly implementing measures, navigating incredibly complex processes, mobilizing resources efficiently because they understood the system's levers. Under immense pressure.
And someone like Odisha Chief Secretary Manoj Ahuja seems to exemplify this aligning departmental goals with the state's long-term vision, pushing for data-driven governance, proactively tackling issues like heatwave water scarcity, not just reacting, but strategically anticipating within the bureaucratic framework.
A good case study.
Okay, so let's zoom out a bit. How do all these foundational values, these virtues, translate into broader, maybe more formal frameworks that guide civil servants day to day? Well, one key framework definitely comes from the Administrative Reforms Commission, the ARC. They propose a set of foundational values, things like providing informed direction, actively promoting citizen input, having clear codes of ethics and conduct, and they emphasize probity, integrity, impartiality, objectivity, commitment to citizen concerns, empathy, especially for weaker sections, accountability, devotion to duty, and leading by example, exemplary behavior. These are really designed to create a solid bedrock for ethical governance.
Okay, that's quite comprehensive.
Then we have Max Weber's perspective, his idea of the good bureaucrat. He emphasized strict adherence to procedure, commitment to the goals of the office, developing professional relationships, and really subordinating one's personal feelings to procedural decision-making, all for reliability and predictability.
Right, the classic Weberian model.
Exactly. Now, Weber famously said something quite provocative, that it's not wise to apply to public administration the sort of moral and ethical norms we apply to matters of personal conscience. He introduced this concept of an independent bureaucratic morality.
An independent bureaucratic morality, what does that actually mean?
Well, this bureaucratic morality suggests public servants should primarily act with objectivity and transparency based on rules and procedures. For example, when identifying beneficiaries for a scheme like the Public Distribution System, the PDS, which provides food grains. Bureaucratic morality means sticking strictly to the eligibility criteria, ensuring fairness through procedure.
Okay, impartiality through rules.
Right. If a public servant is offered a bribe, bureaucratic morality demands they refuse it and report it, upholding the integrity of the office, following the rules against corruption. Our sources even mention instances where this morality might involve, quote, going over the line slightly, like maybe dispensing subsidies to people who are just negligibly above the official poverty line, arguably serving the broader public interest, even if it bends the strict letter of the rule.
Okay, so there's nuance there, but what's the downside?
The critical point, the danger, is that this can lead to what Weber's critics call the iron cage, where officials become so focused on rules that they lose sight of citizen needs.
Right, rule following over common sense or compassion.
Exactly, potentially leading to unfair penalties or people being denied access to resources because they don't tick the right box, even if they desperately need help. So the ultimate takeaway really has to be that you need a careful balance, a balance between this bureaucratic morality and broader ethical norms to prevent that kind of depersonalization.
That balance seems absolutely crucial, navigating the letter versus the spirit of the law, essentially. Let's also bring in the ARC initiative. This is that common foundation course for new civil service probationers. Its deeper purpose, as I understand it, is to instill a shared understanding of governance, build camaraderie, esprit de corps, and it's all guided by this powerful motto, commitment, character, and conduct. Let's unpack those.
Let's do that. Starting with commitment. This is really the quality of being dedicated, loyal to a cause, a mission, or an organization. In public service, it's what drives people to serve the public interest with passion, with energy, with perseverance. It's about aspiring to a vision and being willing to make sacrifices to turn that vision, that promise, into a reality. It's fundamental for building public trust. You could say it's the engine driving sustained effort.
You can really see that commitment in action, can't you? When officials dedicate long hours to developing policies to tackle something huge like climate change, driven by a deep sense of responsibility.
Long-term vision.
Teachers who are committed to quality education, they're constantly updating their skills, learning new methods, going way beyond just the basic requirements. Civil servants demonstrate unwavering commitment during elections, working tirelessly under immense pressure to ensure the whole democratic process runs smoothly and fairly.
Absolutely essential.
We even saw a different kind of commitment when the Indian Premier League, the IPL, was suspended for player and staff safety during those tensions with Pakistan. Even though it meant losing revenue, the commitment was to well-being over profit.
Interesting parallel, yeah. Then we have character. This refers to those deeper personal qualities and values that define how an individual behaves. It's different from just personality or even reputation. And importantly, character isn't something you're born with. It has to be formed, cultivated over time.
Okay, so it's developed.
Yes. It's rooted in virtues we've already touched on. Courage, compassion, integrity. It guides prudent decision-making, aiming for the societal good, not just self-interest. It's essentially the moral compass that directs your actions.
You can see character reflected in actions. For example, a public servant with strong character might really value openness, like a city council member ensuring meetings are public, advocating for government documents to be released.
Transparency is a core value.
Or a healthcare worker showing empathy and compassion, going beyond just their clinical duties to provide truly human care, understanding the person behind the patient.
That human connection.
And cricketer Rinku Singh's perspective on his earnings, saying, one should be happy, whatever God gives. It reflects a certain self-restraint, a value-laden character, a kind of real-world temperance.
Humility.
It really makes you think about that Abraham Lincoln quote. Nearly all men can withstand adversity, but if you want to test a man's character, give him power.
A profound observation.
It really speaks to how power, whether it's political, economic, public office, international stage, truly tests one's moral compass. Does the character hold firm or does it crumble under pressure?
A timeless question. And that leads us finally to conduct. This is, simply put, the manner in which a person behaves. It's the outward manifestation of your rational decision-making, your impulse control, your discipline in public life. It should reflect your underlying commitment and character.
Right, how you actually behave. And we've seen how important professional conduct is. Like that instance where the Kerala police disciplined those 23 officers for posing on the sacred steps at the Sabarimala temple. It violated traditions, but also professional decorum.
Breached expectations.
They were ordered to undergo intensive training on professional conduct. It highlights that your behavior carries weight. It has consequences beyond just your individual actions.
Absolutely. Your conduct impacts public perception and trust.
So, pulling all this together, what does it all mean for the highest guiding principles of public service, the very ideals that are supposed to bind a nation together?
Well, this leads us directly to the constitutional values. These are deeply embedded right there in the Indian Constitution. These values form the absolute bedrock of how the people of India intend for the country to be governed, how society should progress. We're talking about sovereignty, socialism, secularism, democracy, justice, social, economic, political, equality of status and opportunity, fraternity, and also the fundamental duties citizens have, like patriotism, humanism, environmentalism, developing a scientific temper. These aren't just abstract words, they are the nation's aspirations codified.
And we see these values being tested and upheld, like that recent Supreme Court ruling stating that state governors cannot just indefinitely sit on bills passed by legislatures. That clearly upholds constitutional values like federalism and democratic accountability, preventing governance from being paralyzed.
A very clear example. And building right on top of those values is the concept of constitutional morality. This is about adhering to the norms of the Constitution, not just in the literal text, the letter of the law, but crucially, in its spirit.
Yeah, the spirit. Okay.
It's an ever-evolving concept, really. It means going beyond just the plain text to actively apply values like sovereignty, social justice, equality in our daily lives across all spheres of society. As Dr. Ambedkar put it, it means having a paramount reverence for the forms of the Constitution, combined with a habit of open speech. It demands we constantly ask ourselves, does this action, does this policy truly reflect the spirit, the underlying intent of our founding document?
So what does it do, functionally?
Well, its functions are vital. It requires citizens, not just officials, to imbibe these broad constitutional values. It aims squarely at protecting individual rights and dignity. It acts as a crucial check on high functionaries, preventing arbitrary power. And it ensures the Constitution itself doesn't become arbitrary in its application. Without constitutional morality, the Constitution risks becoming just, well, words on paper.
So, in practice, this could mean a judge ruling against a government policy if it restricts freedom of speech, directly protecting civil liberties and upholding the spirit of free expression.
Exactly. Protecting fundamental rights.
Or maybe a public administrator actively working to make government services accessible to all members of the community, regardless of their background, promoting inclusive governance that's embodying equality in spirit.
Yes, ensuring no one is left behind.
It's also civil servants advocating for the rights of vulnerable groups, religious minorities, Dalits, LGBTQ+ individuals, tribal communities, even when facing societal prejudice. They're acting as guardians of the Constitution's promise of equality and justice for all.
A crucial role.
And the Supreme Court recently really underscored its commitment to individual dignity, didn't they? By disapproving of some objectionable comments made by a minister, refusing him interim relief. That sends a powerful message about upholding the spirit, not just the letter.
It absolutely does. And just to round off these guiding frameworks, we should briefly mention the Code of Ethics from 1997. It succinctly pulls together and reinforces many of these principles. Upholding the rule of law, human rights, objectivity, transparency, impartiality, accountability, using public funds efficiently, and avoiding any exploitation of power. Think of it as a practical checklist for daily conduct.
Okay, this brings us to a really crucial point, maybe a challenging one. How do these deep principles apply to something as complex, as emotionally charged, as racial justice? Our sources frame racial justice as a multifaceted issue with really significant ethical implications. It demands that these public service values we've discussed translate into tangible action.
Yes, and when you examine racial justice through this ethical lens of public service, several core considerations jump out immediately. First, discrimination and bias. They are widespread, and they directly challenge that foundational value of impartiality we talked about. They significantly impact people's access to opportunities.
Right, a direct contradiction.
Then you have profound historical injustices. Things like slavery, colonization, forced relocations. These have created deep, lasting inequities. Public servants have to consider this broader context of justice and acknowledge where it has historically failed.
Acknowledging the past.
Absolutely. We also must talk about power and privilege. These are often unequally distributed based on race, which directly contradicts the principle of equality. Those in public office have a duty to challenge these imbalances.
So it's about leveling the playing field.
Yeah, and finally, intersectionality. This is the idea that race intersects with other factors, gender, sexuality, disability, class, creating unique, overlapping experiences of oppression. This calls for profound empathy and compassion from public servants to understand and address these multi-layered disadvantages.
So faced with these complex ethical dilemmas, what are the best practices rooted in the values we've discussed?
Well, the starting point has to be affirming human dignity, recognizing the inherent worth of every single individual, regardless of race. That's a fundamental constitutional value.
An absolute foundation.
Then there's restorative justice. This approach seeks to repair harm, promote accountability, but also reconciliation and healing. It embodies that spirit of compassion and offers a more holistic view of justice than just punishment.
Moving beyond just blame.
Exactly. Equity is crucial too. This means ensuring genuinely equal access to opportunities, education, healthcare, employment. It goes beyond mere equality on paper. It means actively addressing the systemic inequalities, the barriers that exist. That's a true application of impartiality and objectivity.
Actively removing barriers.
Yes. Then there's the concept of reparations payments or other forms of compensation for historical harms. This is a powerful, if often contentious, form of accountability for past injustices.
Addressing historical debt.
And finally, anti-racism. This isn't just about not being racist. It's about actively working to challenge and dismantle the systems, the structures that perpetuate racial inequality. It means addressing our own personal biases and societal ones. This is a direct manifestation of dedication to public service and a commitment to that exemplary behavior needed to shape a more just society.
Wow, what an incredible journey we've taken today. Seriously. From those fundamental values like integrity and the absolute necessity of interdependence, through the timeless cardinal virtues, prudence, justice, fortitude, temperance, and then into the practicalities of bureaucratic wisdom, the guidance from constitutional ethics, it really shows how all these different elements weave together, and indeed how they must weave together to shape public service that's truly effective, truly ethical.
Absolutely. It really underscores that public service isn't just about, adhering to a set of rules or ticking boxes on a form. It's about navigating these immensely complex situations, often under pressure, with a deep internal understanding of these core principles. And crucially, maintaining an unwavering ethical compass when faced with all sorts of pressures and dilemmas, which I think raises a really important question for you, our listener, to consider. In today's world, just saturated with information, with competing narratives, how do you, now armed with this deeper understanding of fundamental values and the nuances of ethical conduct, how do you distinguish? How do you tell the difference between actions that genuinely embody public service, aiming for the common good, and those actions that, perhaps subtly, merely serve self-interest or are designed to maintain outdated, maybe unjust power structures? That's something worth reflecting on.